You're listening to Mechanic.com.au podcast, Australia's #1 podcast for automotive service and repair professionals. This week's podcast is proudly brought to you by Bendix. Put your foot down with confidence. I'm your host, Jason Owen. Today we're joined by Ian Campbell, who's the product manager from Bendix. Hello, Ian. Welcome to the show.
G'day, Jason. Good to be on the show. Thanks for having me.
That's good, mate. That's good. Now, tell us a little bit about the product manager role. What's that entail?
Yeah, so my role oversees pretty much everything to do with products. So we look at range, we look at technologies, we look at, where the car park's going, so what might be coming, as far as new vehicles. And we look at, different technologies. We've got pretty lucky to have a pretty big engineering team at our manufacturing site in Ballarat. And we work pretty closely with them to essentially try and come up with some new and interesting ways to solve some age-old problems.
It sounds like a pretty cool job. You're a car guy yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've got all sorts of interesting toys and I've had all sorts of interesting things.
That's my next question.
Along the way.
You can't tease us like that. What have you got in the garage? What are you working on at the moment?
Look, the current thing at the moment, I've got an FG2 XR6 turbo manual.
Yeah.
It's a
the
bit
mighty
of fun.
Barra.
Yeah. No, it's good fun. And I've got a 69 Cooper S Mini that's about halfway through. So
old school, new school, best of the both, hey? Yeah, you could almost put the Mini in the boot of the Falcon and have best
close,
of both worlds, couldn't you?
Yeah, a little bit of horsepower difference, but they're both good fun.
Well, a great Australian icon, a great UK European icon as well. So you certainly are a car guy. And hey, listen, welcome to all the listeners who are listening, no matter where you are today. Today's topic is, of course, how Bendix helps customers select the very best brake pads to suit their driving style with the 5 key questions. So let's get straight into it, Ian. Tell us, what's the most about your customers' braking needs? Wear, noise, cost, brake dust, performance, a combination of all?
All of the above, Jason. Look, what we find is, the OEs, when they develop a brake pad for a vehicle, they're developing it to cover all needs and all wants and all drivers and all, all usage.
Compromise.
Yeah, exactly right. So it's really hard to cover all of those things. So, there's usually some level of compromise when it comes to performance. So what we try and do is to cover off, what the customers or the vehicle owner's driving style is and the vehicle types. Sometimes the vehicle owner might not be so forthcoming to tell you, what he wants and what he needs, but we can take it. We're professionals, professional technicians. They can have a look at the vehicle. They can have a look at the owner. They can get an idea of how they think they might use it, and then just try and select a product that's going to be right for the vehicle and the customer's going to be happy with.
Well, there's quite a few variables out there, different driving conditions, city stop and go traffic and highway driving. What do you think are probably the main differences between the braking requirements?
You're right. It's exactly, it's an interesting
it is a bit different, isn't
thing
it?
to look at. If you look also for Australia, some of our usage and conditions are quite different. Australia has big distances. We see people carrying massive loads, tradies with utes with lots of equipment in, which you don't see in other parts of the world to the same amount. So typically, in many cases, there's a trade-off, and it's between braking performance, so absolute stopping power and pedal feel.
Yep.
Against things like noise and brake dust and those sorts of things. So,
and there's different drivers have a different foot. Some stomp, some ride. Some enjoy using their brake tail lights and getting good value for money out of them by resting it on.
And people will go off and do track days and so on. So obviously, if you're off in that performance scene and having a play with a toy, your expectations are going to be different from what you used on your.
That's a big badge of honour to be able to drive to the track, enjoy your car, and then drive home these days. It seems a lot of guys and girls are orientating towards that. So the braking expectations are right up there, aren't they?
Absolutely. We're seeing that flow through. We're seeing that flow through, obviously in the performance space. We're seeing it also flow through in the four-wheel drive space. So, if you think about something like a Ford Ranger, by the time you put a bull bar and a canopy and a fridge and a winch and a few other bits and pieces, 500 kilos is not hard to add in. So, you've got half a ton extra that you need to pull up and you're still expecting the vehicle to behave as it did before you put the 500 kilos in it.
Well, that leads me to my next question because, it's very important to identify what your car or truck's going to do. Even simple change like a delivery vehicle or a taxi, that has a huge bearing on brake selection.
And even, within those vehicles, so for instance, a courier driver, if you're a courier driver running around the inner suburbs of Sydney, where it's hilly, You're probably not going very fast. You've got lots of stops from a low speed. So, again, you don't have big airflow over the brakes to get the heat out. That's going to be quite different from if you're delivering in the outer suburbs of Brisbane or Perth or somewhere where it's a bit more open.
And you're going to have also climate things to take into consideration, because a delivery driver, inner city delivery driver in, say, Brisbane in 43-degree temperature is going to be vastly different to the same day in Hobart, a delivery driver who's punting around at
absolutely.
18 degrees.
And the cut and thrust, I mean, Hobart's a lovely place, but the cut and thrust of the traffic's a little bit different there than it is in other parts of the world. So, probably.
Shout out to all our low traffic flow in Tasmania.
What a great place. But, It
is. Well, let's talk about one of the questions, in the 5 key is, do you tow a trailer? And look, obviously there's a weight connotation to that, but how is this a factor? How does that really, drill down in regards to brakes?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's all about, wiping, it's energy. So we're moving that kinetic energy into heat. And so obviously the kinetic energy is the mass of the vehicle by its speed. And you're turning that, with friction to slow the vehicle down. So we see lots and lots and lots of, particularly, tradies vehicles, all perfectly legal. So it might have a tool trailer on the back, probably 500 kilos, potentially another 300 or 400 kilos in the back of the tray. So well within the weight requirements of the vehicle.
Yep.
But you've added a significant amount of energy that we've got to dissipate into heat to make things stop.
I always see the guys backing their ski boats here on the Murray River into the water, and the back wheels are going under, and all the componentry is getting wet and so forth, and they're coming out and they're in and out, in and out, in and out. I've always wondered if that has an impact on the brakes, but the reality of it is, a vehicle that's loaded up lightly or heavily, you have to take that into consideration. But I will ask you this: what about vehicles that have got excessive weight changes front to rear? Does that have to be taken into consideration?
Modern vehicles actually are pretty good. Look, the bulk of your braking does come from the front. Obviously, for a 4-wheel disc vehicle, we'd recommend that you match the pads, the pad type and the pad style front to rear. So, if you've got a performance pad on the front, use one on the rear. Don't use a cheap one on the front and a good one on the back, or a performance pad on the front and something cheap on the rear. So, match the brand, match the type of materials and the sub brands, and normally you'll go fairly well.
And ask the questions about what you're doing with the vehicle.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, have a look, and a sales rep running around in Adelaide is probably going to be far less taxing on a vehicle than exactly the courier van in the inner west of Sydney.
Yeah. All right. So, Ian, one thing that's always not necessarily confused me, but I'd like a little bit of clarity on. When it comes time to choosing brake pads, you quite often have what we'll call the standard OEM pad. Then you'll have like a street pad, like something a little bit performance, and then you'll have the heavy duty race pad. Can you give me a bit of an idea about choosing the right pad in that area?
Yeah, look, absolutely, Jason. So part of what we try and do is, dare I say, what's on the box is what's in the box. So try and give you a bit of a guidance and help the tech, steer the customer in the right direction. So, look, one of the bits of feedback that we always hear is ask lots of questions for your customer, because quite often your customer might be thinking, the tech might be thinking, this customer might not want to spend a lot of money. But if you ask him the questions, he's probably not always going to be at the bottom end of the market. So it's not always about price. So we find our General CT, which is our general ceramic technology, is really popular for most everyday drivers. So the school mum, the sales rep, the whatever. People just using their regular SUV or hatchback or sedan around town. It's a good, clean, quiet pad. It works great and good. Lots of choice to fit up.
So as long as the workshop is asking the right questions and getting the right feedback, they should be able to find a product to match up the needs.
Absolutely. And from that step, you could literally step up. Obviously, we do a four-wheel drive SUV, which, again, what it says on the box, the HD pad, really designed for people like tradies and couriers, where you're carrying a bit of extra load. Even think about things like people movers, say like the old Kia Carnival. If you've got 8 teenage kids rumbling around in one of those, there's a bit of mass on board. So need a bit of extra oomph under the middle pedal.
Yeah.
And then at the top end, we move up to our Ultimate and SRT, which is street, road, track, for that performance end of the pads. So,
Right. Well, I think that answered that absolutely bang on.
yeah, thanks. Hope we can clarify that. And again, there's more info on the website. So, it sort of gives us, it gives the tech some good questions, basic questions to ask their customers. And again, quite often if the customers are asked, they're more than happy to make that choice and rely on that you're going to get the right thing for their vehicle.
Absolutely. Well, another interesting question, and this is probably more from my curiosity side of things. What is ECE R90? Please tell me what that is. That's an itch I need to scratch.
Very good, Jason. Look, it's an interesting one. We're starting to hear a little bit more about ECE R90. So it's a European regulation, and Europe, obviously, we're seeing more and more European vehicles.
Yeah, we are.
It's part of the new car sales. It's a massive part of our car park now, and only going to become larger and larger. But the European requirements need to cover for a new vehicle even greater widths than we do, particularly around speed. So vehicles, obviously on the autobahn, if you're doing 200 and something kilometres an hour, you need to be able to stop the thing fairly quickly.
Or 300 mile an hour, as the new Bugatti has just recorded.
Yeah,
my goodness.
Absolutely, on a public road, what's more, which is not bad, is it? So be good fun. You'd certainly want to have your wits about you there. So we're starting to see lots of people come in and talk about ECR 90, but I don't think everyone really understands what it means. And essentially what the ECR 90 is about is to provide a brake with similar performance. So it's got to be in line with where the OE's at. So it certainly can't be any less stopping performance than what the OE has specified. So, all of the ECR 90 brakes will perform stopping distance wise and pedal feel quite similarly. But where you see some big changes in materials is, things like noise and dust and, NVH, so noise, vibration, harshness. So, some of the materials you can actually change out, put in a pad that has that ECR 90, thinking you're doing the right thing for your customer, and you end up with a pad that's either really dusty, customers' wheels go black in a week, or they're really noisy and makes horrible grinding noises at low speed, or all of those sort of things. So
yeah, right.
So there's more to, particularly the high end vehicles, more to ECR 90 than just meeting that braking performance. Obviously everything that we have with an ECR 90 is within line there, and European brakes have European vehicles typically have really good brakes. So it sets a high expectation.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the top shelf. Let's reach right up the top. Let's talk about ceramic brake pads and the advances of ceramic technology and the applicability of that.
Yeah, look, it's interesting. We've been doing some significant work from an engineering perspective, and coming up with some new materials. So our Ultimate pad right now is considered, for someone that goes out and does track days or performance, and it's the best in pedal feel. But it can be noisy and it can be, certainly dusty. And so we've now got materials coming through that provide the same stopping power as you see in the Ultimate pad. It's same sort of power, stopping power and pedal feel as you have with the Euro style ECR 90 pads, but with that ceramic material, very clean, so it's not leaving the dust on your wheels, and it's super quiet. There's no noise at all across the speed range.
All right, I'm going to throw a left of field question at you right now. This one's sort of a bit close to home. You've got a little Mini, I've got a Chrysler, an older vehicle.
Yep.
We see vehicles that are coming in from other countries around the world into Australia, and as they come through what we'll call the quarantine period.
Sure.
They are expected to have the asbestos material removed out of them.
Yep.
Clutches and brakes and bits and pieces and so forth. How are you guys? You guys are carrying quite an extensive range for those older vehicles that are coming through?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's one of the things that we look at is obviously look at what's out on the road and where the demand is.
Yep.
But right now, I think, off the top of my head, we're getting close to about 6,000 different SKUs, 6,000 different part numbers.
There you go.
And one of the advantages with having our own manufacturing facility is, because we've got the tooling there, if we've got something, let's think HQ Holden.
Yes.
There was a big number of those. We've got the tooling. The tooling's paid for itself 1 million times over. We can go and run a production run of 30 pads. So, it's a really easy thing for us to go and do.
I know with some of those cars that are brought into Australia, some of them are quite unique with their pad requirements, but sometimes people will have to wait a couple of weeks to get them through. So it sounds like you're responding to that side and that side of the market quite well. It sounds like an exciting new dimension for you guys, certainly on the horizon. Well, look, thanks very much for coming on the show today and having a chat with us, Ian. You are a wealth of knowledge in regards to pads and braking. It's been certainly very enlightening having you here.
Thanks, Jason. It's been great to be on. And certainly, look, we're always happy to help. And from our team, whether it's our customer service or our sales reps that get around, we're all happy to help. So if there's information that you need or advice that the technicians require, just get on the phone or have a look at our website, and we'd be more than happy to try and help you make the right decisions.
Excellent. Well, if any of our listeners have any follow-up questions about anything we've discussed today, they can go ahead and reach out to Bendix via the Mechanic.com.au community. Now, if you're not already a member of Mechanic.com.au, join the thousands of other mechanics around Australia who are earning more, learning more, networking more at Mechanic.com.au, the online home of Australia's mechanics, and by creating a free account today. Thanks for tuning in to Mechanic.com.au podcast, Australia's #1 podcast for automotive service and repair professionals. If you want to unlock a whole host of trade-only resources, including our private community, competitions, educational content, job opportunities, training, troubleshooting, and much, much more, go ahead and create a free account now at Mechanic.com.au. Thanks for listening. Keep two hands on the wheel wherever you are. We'll see you for the next podcast coming very soon.